Well, hello, Martha. Thank you so much for joining the Author Revolution podcast. I am so excited and thrilled that you're here today. Now, I did mention in the introduction how you kind of came into my sphere. I don't know that I came into yours much, but I was definitely enthralled. And I was just hoping that you could tell my audience a little bit more about who you are and what you write and what you do in case they haven't heard of you.
Okay, so I write urban fantasy. I've been writing for about 30 some years, must be 35 by now. And yeah, I know,
I
surprises
love
me.
that.
And I started as a journalist. Newspapers was my backup because they'd existed since Ben Franklin. Where were newspapers going?
Yeah.
Who knew? And I wrote for the Washington Post, and I was a freelancer for a long time. Then I had a national column on politics that
Wow,
got about 4 million readers a month.
that's
I wrote
amazing.
thrillers that critics loved and no one cared about. And I switched to urban fantasy and they took off like a rocket. So I have about 200 books in urban fantasy, created a universe with Michael Anderle we co-created called Orosaren. And now I'm working on a fun, you always got to keep finding ways to make it fun for yourself. So I'm working on a project solo, and I'm going to do a Kickstarter that'll come out in May, Queen of the Flightless Dragons. So keep your eyes peeled for that. Yeah, so I'm very excited about that.
Yeah, I would say so. I'm gonna have to come circle back around to the Kickstarter thing because I know that was a huge one at the 20 books
Right.
convention when I think I took three of the different talks on that. So it'll be interesting to talk to you about that. But when it comes to urban fantasy, I am also an urban fantasy writer, but I love it so much because it allows me to kind of shift out of like the norm. I don't know. We've got enough crazy things that bog us down that it's nice to expand into something that is more fun or more freeing. What do you think it is for you that drew you to urban fantasy when you first started?
Well, first of all, as a little kid, I remember I threw my little brother a birthday party and I did the magic. So it was kind of already in there.
Cool.
And urban fantasy, as opposed to fantasy, is the idea that magic exists all around us. We're just unaware of it. And it also can be about the better self of human beings and the darker self. And that we possess more, we're capable of more than we realize, or, going in either direction. And so who wouldn't love that? And also, right. And with urban fantasy, you could do a thriller still. I mean, you could do action adventure still. You could do a romance still. You're just wrapping it in magic and you get to make up the rules of the magics. It's within certain constraints, but really if you can make it make sense, you can do it. So why not?
I guess I love it so much. And I love that it's expanded in different like aspects as well. Like even now with the paranormal women's version of it and
Right.
adding in that midlife character. I love how we keep as authors kind of mixing it up and making it fresh and coming at
Right.
it with new eyes.
And lit RPG, is really has the you go to different levels, but it's urban fantasy because they're creating real worlds there where magic exists and the same creatures. They've just twisted it a bit. I don't know
Sure.
that they'd be happy I said that, but it's true.
I think you're probably very right. Well, I had a question about, obviously you're so inspirational and prolific, and I think you already answered my question, but you have 200 books out so far. Is that what I heard?
I think it's just about, and some of those I may have accidentally. So other people write in the universe, so I may have accidentally included them as well. But it's somewhere in
Oh,
that
good.
neighborhood.
Wow, that's amazing. How does it feel? Like, do you still like look back and go, what book was that? Like, I would get so lost.
The only thing that's the weird thing, I can't remember people's names very well, and I just figure my head's crammed full of characters. And I can remember, I can, generally what I lose is details like what arm got blown off so that I can
Oh,
remember
sure.
not to use the wrong arm the next time. Minor details, but I also know when I don't know. So to go and ask fans, and fans can even tell me the page number pretty quickly. I don't know how they do
Wow,
it.
that's
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah. So, of all the things in my life, sadly, the one thing I can really remember doesn't really exist. So, whatever.
Mm, those things happen. I think that's more fun that way. We can almost get philosophical, like, does anything really exist? I mean,
That's right.
yeah.
That's right. Maybe magic is real.
Oh, good, right? So one of the reasons why I wanted you to come onto this podcast is because I went to the 20 Bucks Vegas conference, and your speech was probably one of the most inspiring ones that I've heard in a very long time. And definitely there. It was one of the ones that just kind of really touched me in a place in my heart that it means something to me, because as you and I were talking before we started, my brother was diagnosed with terminal brain cancer when he was really little. And so
Right.
always had like this need to try to, write through adversity. And that was the name of your talk, working through adversity. And so you mentioned in 2010 that you had a surprising diagnosis. And I was wondering if you could tell my audience a little bit more about what that was like for you and how it impacted your writing during that time.
So in 2010, I was diagnosed with terminal melanoma and given a year to live. And back in 2010, the only treatment for melanoma was surgery. Once, if that didn't fix it, then there was not a lot else they could do. Chemo did not, in those days, work. And they seemed pretty convinced it was just a year.
Wow.
And I the first person I called was somebody I knew who didn't operate on woe is me. And she said, what do you want to believe for? And I said, I want to believe I'm going to live. And she said, then that's what we're going to believe for. And she never wavered.
I love
And
it.
I chose carefully who I would speak to about it, because it's when time is like money, and or it's energy. And so when you spend your time with people who have to tell you their worst story, have to put their fear on you, then I have to work twice as hard to get back to where I started. And
Yeah.
I just spent my time, it's like going to eating an old hot dog from a gas station. It's not a good idea.
No, it's really not. Or
Right.
Taco Bell.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I was very careful about who I would even let speak to me. And something about, being given that diagnosis made me a lot bolder than I had been. And so if somebody started to do I would stop them and say, nope, I can't do that with you. And I would walk away. And that was one of the gifts of that too, was I learned how to stop taking care of others. I stopped letting others be my outer regulation of how I felt, and it started to become more inward. And I made peace with it. That makes it easier to prioritize what it is I want to do. And one of the cool things too was that was back in my thriller days, when I was writing books that no one really cared about except critics. Um, I understood that even if the diagnosis turned out to be correct, I was happy where I was. I mean, I wasn't famous or financially successful, but I still knew I'd made the choices I wanted to make. And that was a really cool thing to find out too. And clearly the diagnosis was wrong.
Obviously. Well, and
Yeah.
thank goodness for that. I think it's really powerful when you have that decision and then hold the belief, though. I
Yeah.
mean, there are a lot of people when they get a diagnosis like that who will shut down and just assume the worst, and like then start going down the rabbit hole of like, oh, these are the signs I need to watch out for. These are the things that are terrible coming at
Right.
me. And that could
Well,
really devastate a person.
it can, but I also want to be really careful. Everybody's journey, when they're in that kind of journey, actually, everybody's journey, no matter what you're talking about, is uniquely their own. And however they choose to do it, I'm cool with. If somebody does want to go down that rabbit hole, I may not join you if it's pretty dark, but I'll try at least to sit and listen. And so this was what I chose to do. But I had a friend who died from breast cancer, and she talked to the very end what she was going to do about in the spring, to the point where the doctors were worried she didn't realize she was dying. And I kept saying, what does it matter? I don't think that's going to change things.
Yeah.
And that's the way she chose to handle it. I was cool with it. So, anybody who's hearing this and thinking, I don't have the capability to do that, really trust you. If what you need to do is get angry and shake your fist, get angry and shake your fist. It's your journey. You get to own it. And I think that's the biggest gift I got out of it, was that I finally fully own something instead of checking in with others about how do you feel about it. It just really didn't matter to me.
That's a really good point. And I think a lot of people going into it beforehand, are going to think that they're, I don't know, just almost the person who isn't in control of it, the person that isn't capable of making those decisions. And so having that power like back in your hands, I think that's really a place of empowerment. I mean, for lack of a better word, it's just, I think that's wonderful. Do you have
Well,
any?
imagine if you then apply that to your writing career, how powerful that becomes. Because, if you're on social media at all, and if you're a writer, you are on social media, hopefully, because you got to be. There's lots of people who love to post about how well they're doing, and here's how they did it in great detail. And that's somewhat helpful unless you feel like you have to do everything that everyone's doing,
Right.
because journeys are not the same at all as a writer. And people make themselves nuts. They spend a lot of money that doesn't come back to them, and they blame themselves. And so being able to take the power back and say, nope, this is being able to trust your own gut and say, this is what I want to do. This is what feels right. This is what's within my budget. And I'm going to trust that this will get somewhere. That's very powerful. So you can take, that's what, you can take that lesson from other parts of life where you stood back up and apply it to writing. It works. Or any artistic career. They're hard because you don't have a building where you can go for an interview and see if you get the job. You're creating your own job and your own audience, and it may take a while.
Absolutely. I know, I know for me, that's definitely, it felt like that in the very beginning where I began in 2010, actually, was the first year that I started writing professionally, where I knew I was going to publish. And I published the first novel in 2013, but it was after like a crazy life mishap, divorce, remarriage, a bunch of craziness. But it isn't always that instantaneous thing that you think it might be.
It
And
rarely is.
yeah, and you were saying for a long time in your talk that money wasn't the easiest thing to come by, and that it actually took a while to get there. What kind of advice?
It took 20 some years. I
Yeah.
mean, I had enough. I had just enough. I was so good at stretching a dollar. I look back on that now and think, how did I do that? I mean, it was like if that was magic. And if I could talk to that younger me who I have the luxury of, first of all, finally being financially successful. And secondly, looking back. And if I could, I would tell her to enjoy the ride more than I was able. I was so focused on I need to be there that I didn't enjoy it as much as I could have, because even those thrillers, I also wrote nonfiction about U.S. orphanages, spent a lot of time living on them to research the book. I wouldn't change any of it. I've written in about every form except screenplays that you can, and I haven't written a play. And I wouldn't change any of it. It makes up an entire life. And I wish I'd realized that.
Sure. And be more in the moment instead. I think a
Well,
lot
I'm
of,
more accepting, and more accepting that I was okay already. That getting here really wasn't going to change who I am, and
yeah,
it didn't.
yeah,
Yeah, because you can be financially successful and still worry every day if you want to.
absolutely. Absolutely. I think it just depends on what your worry is, like what your brain is latched onto. They say that it takes 17 seconds to create momentum of thought. And so as soon as you have a thought for 17 seconds and you're holding it that long, more of similar thoughts are going to join it, and it will continue
Right.
to snowball until you can't get off that train.
Right. But the opposite can be true too. So I can worry about what might go wrong, but what if I thought about what might go right? Because
Yes.
I don't actually control the future. So why not just spend it imagining what could go right? And I'll just so I'm in the do the work business. I'm not in the results business. So I'm not sitting here trying to get anywhere in particular. I'm taking the steps towards what I hope to get to, but I'm open to what happens. Because frankly, everything that I have was not what I was initially going for. But if I had known better, I would have known this is what I wanted.
Gotcha. Isn't it interesting how we do that, where we think there's a goal that we want and we think it's the thing that's going to make us happy, but life will lead us down a different path, and eventually we'll get to a different place, and you'll look back and go, this is actually what I wanted all along. It's no wonder these other things didn't work out.
Right.
Yeah.
But at the same time, when I was younger and worried and a single mother, I was determined to get to the place I decided, and I cut off a lot of paths because they didn't look like. And So yeah, that's another thing I would tell myself is just go with what the door is open, because I don't know where it's leading, and be more willing to just let things unfold. It's all okay.
Yeah, it's all about those experiences and how we dive into the contrast and the experience of everything, just how we want to like incorporate everything that we're walking into, talking to, whatever, and pull it into part of our being. I think that's really important.
It's also hard to be a part of a team if I'm really determined to get to a particular place,
Right.
because you bring other human beings into it. I mean, just talk about Christmas when you're married to somebody and you think you're a reasonable person till they want a fake tree. And so if you know if I can be open and willing, then I'm more willing to try something that they want to do, and I can bring myself to it too. And also, it means when things aren't going smoothly, which is going to happen, I'm more willing to stick with it and to let it ride and to see where it goes than to pull the plug and go in another direction.
Sure.
So yeah, so bring your willingness and just go.
Absolutely. I think there's some benefit to that perseverance and
Resilience.
yeah, and the resilience of it because our especially with the indie author career, I'm losing my voice for some reason. Oh my gosh. In the indie industry, it doesn't feel like there's many of us who are those overnight successes. It feels like it's more
Right.
of this testament of this is our love. This is the thing that we're really wanting to do. And I'm going to keep doing it in the hopes that, yes, someday it will bring financial success. Yes, someday it will bring whatever it is I think I want. But if you can stay in that moment right now and just enjoy where you're at, so
Right.
many more of the beautiful things can unfold for you as you continue to move forward. Maybe you're even then guided more on that path of the things that will bring you more joy because you're more open to what those are. If it's an interesting new door
Right.
that comes at you and you didn't know it was there.
Yeah. And also, there was a time in the early 2000s where, or I guess it was 2010, where I was exhausted from the pitching, just the constant pitching. And I went and got a corporate job as an editor for a few years, and it was actually great. I had an insurance card in my pocket. I knew where to show up. The job was pretty much the same every day. I had a cubby. Every 2 weeks, money magically appeared. And it was great to take a break. So there's also nothing wrong with that. You're still a writer. I wrote when I could, and I just could take a breath. So this journey is a long one, and you get to make it whatever you want, and whatever you choose is great. It's got nothing to do with anybody else's opinion. By the way, when I first self-published, I was traditionally published first. And when I first self-published, someone I knew sent me this long screed of an email saying I was embarrassing myself and I should turn back and blah, blah, blah. And it was very long too. They'd taken a lot of
Oh
time.
my gosh.
And I
They must have
deleted
cared
it.
an awful lot.
And they had very strong opinions on it. And they weren't a
Yeah.
writer, but whatever.
Huh.
I deleted it because what's that got to do with me? They
Yeah.
were bringing their own opinion, their own fears, and their own feelings of self-worth based on what you do. If I had self-published and crashed and burned and gone back traditional, who cares?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's my journey. So, I mean, the most important question there is in the world is what do you want? And it's fluid, it changes all the time. You
I
check in
agree.
with yourself and say, what do I want? And then go for it. And sometimes you try it and you think, this is horrible. And so you make a different one. Nothing is wrong. You just cross something off the list. That's all.
Yeah. And it might not even been the right decision then, but it left you with an experience that will help
That's
you later
right.
on. You just never know how it's going
Yeah.
to come back.
Well, even those experiences are right ones because you learn what you don't like, which makes what you do like stand out more.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely. And it makes it more clear. So then you've, if nothing else, gained
absolutely.
clarity. Yeah.
Yeah, and you're not going to stand around saying, "Oh, well, what about that?" And by the way, I'd mentioned the Kickstarter. I tried doing a solo project 3 years ago, pre-COVID, which feels like 10 years ago, but
It
not.
does.
Yeah. And I tried too much at once. And it was too much work. It was too, I was also doing Orsarin and all of that. And then I had
Yeah.
this other thing I was building, and it wasn't fun. And so I killed it about a year into it and thought, huh. But what I realized was that I had answered a question for myself. Do I want to build something that big? No, I do not.
Uh-huh.
And so now doing the Kickstarter, it's actually more fun because there's no part of my brain going, but what about this? And I learned a lot from it. Yeah. So you
That's
learn from
great.
those experiences too. Nothing is wasted.
Do you think now, looking back, do you value fun then a lot when it comes to like how your experiences are unfolding? Do you look at the fun aspect of it?
Well, actually, what I'm always saying, and I probably said in that speech, was if you're not having fun, why are you doing it?
Yeah.
And I know people like to say to me, well, there's some things I have to do in life that aren't very fun. And I totally agree. But while I'm doing those things that aren't very fun, I'm trying to figure out how to adjust.
Yeah.
So if I have a job that I don't like, which happens to all of us, and you can't afford to necessarily just walk out the door, but I can recognize that I'm not having fun here, and then what can I do to change jobs, change this job, whatever, and keep going. So, or me finding out, I mean, I wasn't having fun when I had this huge project going. I mean, every hour of every day was now eaten up, so there's nothing else to do. I'm too old for that. Maybe if I was 30, that would have been fun, but I'm 63. It was not fun.
Yeah.
And so I adjusted, I made sure everybody was taken care of, and I killed it and got to come back. Now I'm coming back around a second time. We're just going to do it smaller so that it's just me. Much more fun for me.
That's
And,
great.
but yeah, if you're not having fun, especially writing can be tough, you know, critics, whatever, it can be tough. If you're not having fun at it, why are you doing it?
Absolutely. And I think so many of us, especially, I don't know, it seems like a cycle. It's like we start and we're having fun. We're like, oh, this is the best job ever. This is like the greatest thing. And then all of a sudden you start learning, oh, then there's keywords and there's like, you have to understand copywriting and there's these covers and the covers have to match this genre. What's a genre? All the things start coming
Yeah,
at you. And it's like it sucks the air out of the room for a bit.
right.
And you have to find a way to decompress it and let the fun back in so that you can figure out which
Yeah.
aspects of those things you want to focus on and which ones you
Yeah.
want to just let go.
Yep. And also to, on a day, if I'm really overwhelmed, I know it's time to quit for the day.
Yeah.
And that teaches me that nothing that I do absolutely has to be done right that second, so that I don't start thinking I'm in control of the universe. Because that's a tough place to live where it's worry, worry, worry.
Yeah.
And I'd rather let something go and pick it back up the next day than teach myself that the universe is a very narrow, unforgiving place. And yeah, so pick the things you want to do. If you've got to do something for a while you don't like, while you're doing it, look at how necessary it might be. Is there someone you can farm it out to? Does it need to be done? How can you make it better?
I love that. I love that so much. I think we often have to do that. It's so hard in the beginning when you think as an indie author, everything's on your shoulders and it's like it's all so pressing. But I think I've mentioned this on the podcast before too, where it's like as soon as I hired my PA, which was
Right.
2018, I think is when it was, end of 2018. So it's like mostly 2019. Um, it was like that was the turning point in my mindset. It was the turning point in my reach. It was the turning point with my income. It was like allowing someone to finally come in and help instead of me having to be the only one doing all the things. That was like the light switch that kind of let things go forward and let me see things better. And I think a lot of authors, they think it's like they're scared to let other people in. Maybe it's finances, maybe it's because they're perfectionists or controlling their universes with whatever they're doing. But it's so freeing to finally know that someone else has your back. You know what I mean?
Sure. Life is all about connections.
Yeah.
And the more we can connect with others and show vulnerability, the easier and more fun it gets. And again, I'm teaching myself I'm not in control of the universe and that's a good thing. So, if you can't afford a PA, then choose the few things you can do and just trust that that's enough, which is how I started, it's how everybody started. And when you can't afford a PA, buy just a few hours, figure out the thing you really don't like doing and give that as the first assignment. That way you get to know each other too. And the wonderful Grace Snoke is my assistant now, but that's not the first person I hired. It took a few.
Sure.
And So, you just keep going and trust that you will find the right person. And yeah, I've been able to expand my business because Grace exists. And I don't think I could if she didn't, because how am I going to spend so many hours writing if a million other things need to be done? Plus, I'm not any good at math. Grace loves spreadsheets. So she keeps track of that. And if you run into somebody who doesn't do what you hoped, who you don't feel like had your best interest, then you let them go. Change
Yeah,
your passwords. It's not a big deal. It's okay. And you just keep going. You don't need to you don't need to make it into a thing. It's
yeah.
just what happened. And yeah, just keep going. And all those things have happened to me. And it's fine. I mean, life's too good to even think about it. I just keep going. Found
Absolutely.
Grace. Grace is wonderful.
I
And she
love
has a book about how to be a good PA.
Ooh, what is the book
Uh,
called?
it is called Free Your Time: How Assistants Supercharge Successful Authors.
I love it.
So if you want to be a PA, it tells you what you need to know. And if you want to hire one, it tells you what to look for.
I love that. When I
Yeah,
first
it's
started,
great.
I didn't know what I needed. I just knew what would feel good if they did it. It was kind of like I was trying to figure out. So I had a
Right.
spreadsheet, speaking of spreadsheets, and I kind of I guess went into it where it was like for the first 4 months I would try out 4 different people and then I would come back to the ones that felt like they worked the best. So like each one knew that they get like a month trial and then I'll come back to them at the end of this like period. And that's how that whole situation went. And I was able to see what I liked, what I didn't like. And I think sometimes maybe
Yeah.
that's helpful too. Just be really clear and upfront in the beginning of
Yes.
what you need and what you're looking for. And you're going to know working with those people pretty quickly whether or not they're the right fit, you know?
Yeah. And if you could take ego out of it and understand you're not responsible for others, then it's easier to say, this is what I need. It doesn't seem to be working. I wish you well, but this is where we part. And if you're going to build a universe, by the way, you better learn that as well, because not every writer, it's not going to always work out, and or cover designer, etc. And if you put ego into it, then you're dragging around a lot of resentment, and you may be putting resentment out there in the world when it's not necessary. It's just be clear, and if you need to say something, say it quickly. I mean, by quickly, I mean don't wait days or weeks or months.
Let it stew. Yeah. Don't do that.
It doesn't help anybody. Yeah, give people the information they need. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you there. Absolutely. Okay, now you mentioned both in your talk and then just a few minutes ago that you're now earning a full-time income from it. You're a millionaire author, and this is something that over the past year and a half I've been talking a lot on my podcast about trying to elevate the indie author community out of that poverty mindset. They seem, a lot of them, especially the newbies, have this idea of like I would never be able to earn a lot of money. I'll never be able to, and that's like their go-to mindset, like this concept of like I'll never make it, so therefore I'm not going to dream that big.
Mhm.
And so I've been trying to help them kind of shift through those limitations. And you were talking about in the talk before about how you, in the beginning, especially being a single mom and going through your cancer situation, everything with money was very tight and you stretched the dollar. But you were able to turn it around in part because of total honesty. And I thought that was so key in that talk. I was like, that is powerful. Can you
Mhm.
tell my audience a little bit about what you meant by that?
Sure. So if I can't be rigorously honest, then we all know that honesty means you don't stand there and say the sky is red when it's blue. I mean, those are obvious, but there's a nuanced side to honesty, rigorous honesty, where you're kind of lying, but you call it other things, and it chips away at you. So if I can't say, this is where I'm at, this is how well I'm doing, and own it or not doing, then I'm lying, and I'm really harming myself. And I'm also putting myself, I'm kind of making myself prey for other people who like to tear at you.
Mm,
And I'm just heaping more shame on myself, because now this person is like the person who sent me the email with the long screed because
yeah.
I was choosing indie. If I hadn't learned to find my sense of worth from myself, then I probably would have stewed over that email for days. Instead, I just deleted it and thought it was kind of amusing that he spent that much time on it.
Yeah.
Because he wasted probably a good hour anyway. Um, So if you're, if you're feeling like I cannot imagine making that much, frankly, what I'd say to you is that makes sense because you've never done it. So it's not a fault. How about we start with where you feel comfortable internally? So if you're making, say, 30,000 a year, if you made 36, does that feel like doable? Like it's like you can envision yourself with 6,000 more dollars a year, which I think is 500 more dollars a month. Does that feel like attainable? Just start there. Because like you've mentioned, not nobody I know, at least except Michael maybe, went from 0 to 100 overnight, and we all built to it. So that's fine, build to it. What's the goal that you think you could get to, that you can envision? What would you do with 500 extra dollars a month? Picture that. When you get to that goal, pick a new one. Just do it that way, because you'll have more fun too. Trying to envision something that you just don't feel good about, it's not going to work. Pick the thing you can. The rock is still rolling in the right direction.
Absolutely. It's those incremental upgrades and going with the momentum
Sure.
of it for sure.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
didn't dream about where I am right now. I'm not sure I would have known how to, but I did dream, I had smaller dreams. And at every birthday, my friends and I have this thing where we like to say, if money were no object, what would you want? And this one young lady, she was in her late 20s, and she said with all her heart, I would want a gym membership and a Kindle. And this is, a fictitious game where I always say
Yeah.
chef and driver, by the way. I always say a chef and driver.
Yes.
And what I thought was wonderful was she actually picked something. Somebody said, well, I think out of all of us, you're the most likely to get it. And years later, she did attain both those things and surpassed it. And maybe she had the right idea because she picked attainable goals
Sure.
and then drove right over them.
Yeah. You pick the thing that feels good that you really want right now, and you know it's
Well, it can be a
inevitable.
stretch. It can be a slight stretch. I mean, it doesn't have to be like, I know I can do it tomorrow. It's what if you check in with yourself internally. Does this create anxiety, or can you picture what you would do with the money? And
Absolutely.
if really what you want, if you're, like a single mom, and really what you want is to not worry about where the diapers are coming from, then that's your goal. How much does it cost to get enough diapers? That's your goal. Just start with that. Shane Silvers worked in a bank when he first started, and his goal was to make as much as he did at the bank. And from what he says, it wasn't a lot, so it was a attainable goal, and that was all he wanted. And then he, drove right over it.
Yes, he
So
did.
he did. So pick something where internally it can be small too. Whatever it is that internally you can handle, it's okay. That's not going to stop you from going beyond it. This is just where you're headed today,
Yeah,
and things change.
absolutely. And it's okay to pick those smaller things as long as it's something that you feel really joyous about. If it gives you that
Yes.
anticipatory like elation, go for
Yes.
it.
Yeah.
Everybody's
And
journey is different.
that's right. And it can still have, if no matter what you pick, you still have some anxiety mixed in, doesn't matter. True courage is being afraid and going forward anyway. And, the Kickstarter thing, I have a lot of joy around it, but occasionally I have a twinge of, what if no one shows up?
Sure. I think that's pretty normal.
Yes. And that never goes away, by the way. You can make as much as you want, and you can still try something new and think, wonder if no one comes. And it's not going to stop me, and I'm still having fun. So that's normal too. You're never, well, as far as I know, we don't get to a place where there's no anxiety at all. It's just, I know my limits. And if the anxiety is above it, then what I've come to learn is that's my inner self saying, you don't want to be here. This is
Yeah,
not set up correctly. Something is missing.
that is so
And
wise.
you're either doing it too big, or you haven't asked for enough help, or you don't have enough information. But I use it as an internal like alarm system instead of turning it on myself. Oh, it's me. There's something wrong with me. Nope. That's not, no, and I would say that's never the case. So if you're approaching something like, me trying to build a second universe that was too much, all by myself. Then ask yourself, what is it about this I don't like? And change it. We're right back to what do you want and are you having fun?
Yeah, absolutely. And that we have the
Those
power
are the
to change
guide.
those things when they're not fun.
Right. Use it as your guide. Yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, I adjust word count all the time, depending on life, what's going on in life. Because that's my guide to, are you having fun? Or are you just sitting down thinking, oh dear Lord, I have to get to X number? Or am I done so early that it's like, well, what are we doing for the rest of the day? So it's all fluid too. What you think you need to do today may not be what you want to do, need to do tomorrow. It's all good. If we could all just trust ourselves more and get our sense of self from ourselves and be okay and be able to ask for help. So you were talking about, the shame and the honesty. If
Yeah.
I can't be honest, then I can't ask for help because I don't want you to know. So I'm not about to ask you.
Right.
But if I ask for help and you find it as an opportunity to throw out aspersions, then you're just not the right person to ask, and I can go ask someone else. I can let go of whatever's going on with you. It's not about me, and go ask somebody else. But all I'm going to do if I can't be honest, which is what I did, is isolate myself.
Ah, gotcha. And
Yeah.
I think that happens an awful lot. I think that so many of us authors are isolating ourselves because we don't realize that we need those other people to support us.
Yes.
I mean, we're social creatures, so it in a logical sense makes sense. But I think we try to protect ourselves when we are feeling shame or doubt or feeling like we're not good enough. And
Yeah.
that aspect is not going to bring the results that you're looking for.
No, and the one thing that all again, take what you like and leave the rest for all of this. But the one thing I found that can cure that sense of I'm not good enough is actually exposing it to light.
Yes.
And so the very thing that I need in order to kill it is to go and be honest with others.
Yeah.
And but pick and choose who you're honest with. And if you choose somebody and they turn out to not be an ally, okay, go choose somebody else. You'll figure it out. And that's another thing I think I said at that speech was find some writers who are kind of right at your level, who you admire as well. You're all that's your class, like when you were in high school or kindergarten, and you're going to grow together. And those are the people you can call and say, here's what happened, good or bad. And they're either going to help you dissect it, or they're going to cheer for you and you'll do the same for them. And you're going to keep them forever. I mean, I have them. So if you don't have them, that's one of the best reasons to go to 20 books. If you're new, you're going to have so many people to choose from, and collect numbers and keep in touch and, do sprints virtually, all that stuff, so that you've created your own class.
Yeah. Almost like the not necessarily a critique group, but like
No.
a friend group of writers that are in that
Like you're
same.
in like you're in college, I guess. You're
Yeah.
all taking you're all taking courses, maybe not the same, but you have the same goal of graduating.
Yep.
And then once you get to certain places, you still have each other
That's
and you
cool.
can support each other. And also a lot of, not just me, but I hear it from others. It's like we all naturally get to this place. You start picking some place to go and gather physically. So like a lot of people, they'll pick a resort and they'll show up together. So yeah, find your allies, find the people that you can talk to who won't make it personal, who won't say, yeah, that's terrible. You don't need that. Um, the ones who can support you and help you dissect it and say, your blurb is terrible. Here, let me help you rewrite it. Or it looks like you're doing everything right. Maybe you haven't given it enough time. Whatever it is.
That's really smart too. That's having those people that can take a look at things and say, there's nothing wrong with this thing. Just give it a little more
Yeah.
space and
Yeah.
breathe.
Right.
Yeah.
And because a party of one is an echo chamber. And
Yeah.
if you're having chats with yourself, I mean, it's still just you.
Yep.
You talking to you will not get you out of the problem you're in the first place. So
For sure.
yeah, little vulnerability may be required. Being able to own it and say, I screwed up quickly is awesome. You won't carry it around. You'll get help. You can laugh about it. And you can say you're sorry if that's required too.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
Okay, so I want to talk to you a little bit about the Kickstarter thing. Is the Kickstarter your first thing, or did some of your
My
friends be like,
first
bring?
Kickstarter,
Now,
my
did you like hit up Patty, Patty, and be like, hey, show me how to do this, or what brought you to the idea
I
of
hit up
Kickstarter?
Russell. Like,
Okay.
Russell.
Yep,
Yeah.
Russell. Yep.
So see, yeah, I'm talking to Patty next week.
Nice.
So I'm a big fan of gathering information. When people say the reason that won't work and they have gathered no information, I call that contempt ahead of information.
Ooh,
What are
smart.
you basing it on?
Yeah.
Right. So go and gather. I talked to Dakota Kraut. He had a successful one just recently on board game. He's doing a board game based on a series.
Nice.
And yeah, and I talked to there was a woman there at 20 books from Kickstarter who's in charge
Yep.
of all the books. Talked to her. And yeah, I'm a big fan of gathering information because then you can sort through it and figure out what you like and what you don't. And it's always about take what you like, leave the rest. But that takes trust. Again, we're back to the I don't have to do everything. I'm
Yeah.
going to trust thee. And what resonates with me is the part I'll do. And I'm also taking the attitude of I'm going to keep it low, the amount to reach 1,500. And, there's still a part of me is like, please let me hit the 1,500.
Yes,
And I'm going to,
absolutely.
yeah. And then I'm going to build from there. And it's kind of fun. It's kind of fun.
When is your Kickstarter launching?
It's launching May 1st. I
Okay.
will have a temporary page up soon. I'm waiting on some artwork and that people can then follow if they want so that when it comes out. And it's called Queen of the Flightless Dragons. It's urban fantasy set in Austin. And yeah, it's a lot of fun.
That is amazing. That just sounds like a lot of fun. I know
Yeah.
like the concept of Kickstarter for me, I've always gone small. I've done like I think three of them in the past and always done small. And it's that concept of, oh gosh, I hope people actually turn up and support this thing. The last one I had done was it was almost like a class of us. Prolific Works had like pulled us all in to like test out if they did Kickstarters, like how would that work? Like, would it be a thing? And it was a lot of fun, and I learned a lot. But it's just that whole time you're still white knuckling it. Like, is anyone going to focus?
Right. Right. So Russell Nolte has a Kickstarter class, and I think they have like almost maybe 100% success rate in teaching people and also to keep their expectations reasonable so that they always hit their mark. And with Kickstarter, I am looking at it as a store. So lots of people who aren't authors browse Kickstarter looking for things.
Mm,
It's the biggest seller of board games now, and not Walmart, not Amazon, Kickstarter.
wow.
And so I approach it as a new kind of store that's easier to bundle. It's the only place that if you as an author sell something, you actually get the emails of who you sold to.
Right.
And so you can actually build an audience that isn't dependent on somebody still being in business, still liking you. And you can have a lot of fun with it. The stretch goals, yeah, and you can cheer others on. I can go on and join in on somebody else's. Claire Taylor had a recent one on Enneagrams for authors. That was a
Yep.
really good one. And I joined that one. Oh, wow.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
I have that book around this house somewhere. Because yeah, I did that one, and it's been for Queen of the Flightless Dragons. It's actually helped quite a bit to recognize what Enneagram I was doing with the main character and to keep it
Oh,
in mind. She's extremely helpful. If you're stuck,
yeah.
yeah, find Claire Taylor. Also, I think she has a special going on right now.
Oh,
I don't know
maybe.
when this is when you're doing the podcast, but
It'll be in a
yeah,
couple of weeks. Yeah, absolutely.
look
Yeah.
up Claire Taylor and Enneagram for Authors because yeah, you will learn a lot and about yourself. I went into it for the books and I learned what my Enneagram is, and I kept thinking, yeah, sure. But she kept
I
she
love
kept
that.
describing me to a T,
You're
and
like,
I
dang
just thought
it.
that's kind of annoying.
Yeah.
And yeah, so but also with Enneagrams, what you learn is, and it's useful in developing characters, is what
Yeah.
does it look like as it gets healthy? And so that's the arc you create through the story that takes the character from here to here. And
Sure.
it, even if the no reader has ever seen an Enneagram in their life, they still internally know what rings true for
Yeah.
a particular set of behavior. And you're not the reader, you're the writer. So you got to know how to get it there. It's not, it can't be by chance.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's really cool. And it's the Enneagram is really interesting. I also liked Becca Syme. She had a conversation
Oh,
where it
I
was
did that
about the
one too.
archetypes. Yeah, that was a really
Yeah.
cool talk too, wasn't
Yeah,
it?
yeah, yeah. And no,
Yeah,
but I mean, doesn't she have she had a Kickstarter recently too, about how to
I
get
think so.
unstuck.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yep, I joined that one too. So clearly I'm also a regular browser of Kickstarter.
Nice.
And
That's a
yeah,
good thing.
it's also fun. You come across somebody who's, if this is their first book, they have zero fans, they've got this
Yeah.
one little book. I love it. So if it looks at all like they can pull this off, I'm going to join in.
Yeah.
And yeah, and I
That's so
think
cool.
it's so much fun. Yeah. So yeah, are you having fun? What do you want to do? And so Kickstarter, and then Joe Solari spoke at 20 books on this, and what he said: Kickstarter, sell from your website, go wide, then KU,
Okay.
and you build a very strong audience that belongs to you. So even if everything else burns down, you're still there.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and it's a nice way to build that foundation. I think,
Yes.
if you're not quite sure where to start or how to build it in a way that's sustainable, that's a great way to do it.
Right. And also, if you really are thinking, I don't understand ads at all, as you get to know them, Kickstarter doesn't require it quite so much. People do advertise Kickstarter on Facebook, when they have one, but it's not as necessary. And so it's a way to get going without all the pressure and without all the expense, because you do a Kickstarter, you figure out how much you need, and take Russell's class, because that's the number one error you can do, is you don't ask enough
Yeah.
money. But so you've already paid for, you get money in, and you can use that when you get to Amazon to pay for ads. So it's not coming out of your pocket.
That's great. And especially since when you're first putting anything onto Amazon, you have that 2 month buffer. It's like even if you
Yeah.
started selling your books, it's like you have to wait 2 months before you actually get your first check. So
Right, right. But also in the first 30 days, Amazon's algorithms will help you. And so
absolutely.
if you go into it with a little bit of a headwind, then it will pick you up and help you rise. But you got to do a lot of work before you get there. It's kind of like with Kickstarter too. If you bother to do a bunch before it opens, then you'll have a successful Kickstarter, because, and I'm, basing this on what Russell and Claire and Patty and everyone else, the first 48 hours is critical.
Yeah,
And so you want to actually have done all the work before you get there.
absolutely. Yeah, it's like any kind of launch runway. You want to have that beginning phase where
Yes.
people are aware of it. They know that this is coming. You
You're
build the hype and
excited.
excitement. Yeah,
Yeah.
for
You
sure.
could do a prequel if you're doing a series, you could do a prequel, give that away, so that when they show up, they know they like your style. Yep.
I love that.
And then just have some fun and like I'm doing, pick an amount you feel you could do,
Yep.
because if it doesn't stop you from it going higher.
Absolutely. It just means that
Yeah.
now it's funded and you know that that's the amount that you
Yes.
needed to cover whatever it was that you were trying to cover for sure.
Right.
And then you just keep going. Yeah.
Right. And you can think of stretch goals that don't cost anything.
Yeah.
You don't have to do, yeah, just keep it simple. The first time, that's what I'm doing, at least. I'm going to keep it simple, because you learn from doing. And so, this is a trilogy, by the way. I already know the next series I want to do this with. So, 3 Kickstarters to begin with, book 1, 2, and 3. The books are longer than I normally do. They're about 1.5 times as long, a little
Wow.
more.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and the covers for Kickstarter will be exclusive to Kickstarter. And then I'll have another set of covers when I venture out of Kickstarter. So,
That's cool.
create a little exclusivity. Yep.
And
But if you
love that.
can't afford multiple covers, don't worry about it. Just do one. Start from where you are. Where you are is great.
Yeah, absolutely. Because people will see what you're trying to do and what you're trying to accomplish. And
Yeah.
if you're new, they're going to know that too. They're going to, like you just said, if they look like they're doing okay, that it's possibly going to go for it, it's like, why not? Give
Yeah,
them a little help.
that's right. And it feels good to giving someone a boost. You can't really figure that out looking at Amazon. There's too much. It's just too hard. But on Kickstarter, you can get an idea of, oh, okay, they're new at this. And it looks reasonable. And then also sometimes you come across somebody who's been doing it a while and they've got another new book and you like them and it's clean and funny and whatever. Yep, I joined those too.
Nice.
And I think I did one where the book is based on the ocean or something. And so there's a stuffed octopus coming my way.
Cool. Then you always get like these book mail things where you're like, what is this thing? Ooh, it's a mystery. Do you do TikToks then when you get like the book mail from
Oh,
Kickstarter?
no, I
No?
don't know. Oh, I'll
That'd
have
be
to look
cool.
in. Yeah. TikTok is not something I've really investigated, but I have noticed how a lot of writers are using it to their advantage. Yeah, there's always going to be a new shiny object. If you got time, then go have fun with it. If you don't, okay, there'll be another one right behind it.
Absolutely. Yes,
Yeah.
I completely agree with that.
Yeah. There was, I mean, because I've been doing this now long enough to remember the things that we were all crazy about that don't even exist anymore.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like actual handheld newspapers.
Well, yeah. Yes, but even in the past 5 years of indie writing, there was something, I don't even really remember their name anymore, but people were using it to give away books. It was a big hot thing. It's
Insta
been,
freebie.
it might have been Insta Freebie.
Yeah, it merged with or it became Prolific Works. Is kind of how that went. But yeah, even
But we
Prolific
were
Works
all
haven't.
talking about it, and
Yeah.
now everybody's moved on. And
Yep.
some of the things survive in a new form or not quite as hot as they were. But yeah, or remember BookBub, how getting a BookBub was everything.
Oh,
And
right.
now, yeah, I mean, people were throwing, I think Craig Martell kept posting 957th try.
Right.
I hope he got one eventually. And
It took
but
ages.
they're
Yeah.
still great to get. They just don't seem like, the thing to do. Maybe Kickstarter's the hot new fun thing.
I
I
think
don't
it
know.
is right now.
I'll
It
see it.
definitely seems like it, especially since Brandon Sanderson and his big, ginormous
Right,
Kickstarter. I think authors are
right.
like, wait a minute, I didn't know you could do that. You know?
Yeah, but I don't think a lot of us are there over there yet because again, I'm a shopper as well, looking, and I can't find much. So we're not there yet. I don't,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, yeah,
Isn't it
it's
interesting?
not flooded yet. It will, I keep saying probably will be at some point. Who knows? Who
I think it
knows?
just depends on those who are interested in actually putting the effort in. Because I know for me, at least, when I did the Kickstarter with Prolific Works, it was really detailed. Like they had a specific way that they were helping us to create the sales page and all the different things that you had to highlight and the way that you had to
Right,
do it. And so sometimes it's a lot more effort. And if you as an indie author
right,
are already feeling overwhelmed, the last thing
right.
you want
Maybe
to
it's
do.
not your thing. Right.
Yeah.
Did you make a video for it?
I think I did. I can't remember if that last one I did or I'm pretty sure I did because
Yeah.
they had different requirements that they were having us do.
And, and so Insta Freebie became Prolific Works,
Yep.
and now they're helping people see. That's very clever of them. They morphed into the new thing.
I don't know if they're still doing the Kickstarter thing. This was back in 2019, I want to say that I did the Kickstarter with them,
Wow.
where they kind of took a group of us. They had emailed us and said, "Hey, we're thinking about testing out this new thing." And I don't know if it even went anywhere after that. I just know that they were helping us develop our Kickstarters. I think they got like a cut of whatever happened because there
How
were
interesting.
yeah, so it was really a neat process to go through and just to learn from them. We had like a one of the Slack channels where everybody got to talk at the same, in
Right.
there and
Right.
talk about how this is working and what are we missing. And it was coordinated through Prolific Work. So if you were missing something, the coordinator would be like, hey, at whoever this person was, make sure you get your little whatever thing uploaded. So it was like there was always this ongoing conversation. You knew what was necessary and what was needed and what the deadlines were. And so it worked pretty cool. I mean, it was like clockwork. It was great. But I don't know if they continue to do that or not.
Well, it doesn't matter if you keep doing Kickstarters, then it did what it was supposed to. If all the little authors keep, figuring out how to start a Kickstarter, but don't let that be where you stop. I love Joe's idea of hit all the marks.
Yeah.
Instead of choosing just Kindle Unlimited or just going wide, why wouldn't you just do it like an arc and hit them all?
Oh, I agree. And try different things, because you might find Kickstarter is way more fun than just going wide. you know?
Right, right. Yeah. And as I progress and get comfortable with it and do more of them, then you start offering fun stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not going to do it the first time though. There's enough to do without trying to figure out how to get things manufactured and mailed.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, like
Well,
special embossed covers, and yeah, I know what you mean.
or playing cards,
Yeah.
or yeah, there's a million different. Yes, yeah. Let's just keep it simple.
Yeah. Because then you have to do all that. It's almost like coordinating a big conference. You have to have all the details up front so you know how much to charge people. So
Yes,
yeah.
yes.
So
And anyone you talk to about Kickstarter who's teaching others, that's the thing they talk about the most, is not getting it correct on cost.
sure.
That's will shoot you in the foot faster than anything. Yeah. So yeah, try and keep it simple. But yeah, I'll have one out in May.
I
So
can't wait. That's so exciting.
yeah, yeah.
Too
I'm
cool.
excited.
I
Yeah. And I've been having more fun writing the book too. It just because it's new and it's
yeah.
longer form, and I gave myself more time. Yeah, while doing the other stuff still. Yep.
So are all three books coming out this year, or is it going to be span
No,
over?
it's going to expand over a little bit of time.
Okay.
And yeah, and that also, that's what I'm hoping too, is that I can build an audience there where their expectation is it takes a little longer, so that, possibly I can take this into a kind of retirement
Yeah.
where I'm actually still working, but there's just lots more time in between.
I think that's great. I think that's
Yeah.
so smart, because there are so many people who are headless chickens trying to write a book a month, and it gets nuts. And it's like, I don't even know how you people do that.
I do that, but I know people who can write even faster than I can, and I have no idea. Or
Right.
people who are using voice recognition, and I've tried it. It does not work for me.
Same.
So, like anything, there are people who are faster than I am. There are people who are slower than I am. But I'm 63, so I'm nearing where I would like to do other stuff too. And
Absolutely.
yeah, and so this is a way for me to test the waters and see if I can get it to where it's still fun to do less of it and make money. And I
Yep.
think I can. And I think Kickstarter's, the Kickstarter sell for my website, go wide KU path. We'll see. We'll test out Joe's theory. So if anybody's watching the 20 books, Joe Solari's presentation was really good.
It was.
Patty's, Russell, I think Russell did 5 presentations.
He did a number of them. And then the panel where all of them were on the panel for Kickstarter was great too.
Okay. And so, yeah, I would go check all of those out and check out Russell's. I think Russell's got these short little videos you can watch on that will get you at least the basics, and then just go browse through Kickstarter, try a few. You can try them for like $10. I mean, it's not.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
And then you can, you find things like Claire, and hers was so helpful. And then the other person you mentioned who had the getting unstuck,
Becca, oh,
Becca.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, you might trip over something that's really super useful.
absolutely.
I'll let Claire know you held up her book.
Awesome. I look forward to that. I can't wait. I actually just got it 3 days ago. So I've been kind of looking through the first few chapters, like when I get a chance when I'm doing other things. And so it just happened to
Yeah.
be right here.
Yeah, it's really been useful to, and in the Kickstarter, so in a Kickstarter, I got the level where there's coaching, etc. That's another fun thing about Kickstarters. You get things you're not going to get on Amazon.
Yep,
Yeah.
absolutely. I think Patreon is a lot like that as well. I've been
Can be, yeah.
Yeah, for me, I'm kind of burnt out with the whole idea of social media. And so this year I was talking with my PA, and she's like, why don't you just stop doing social and shift it over to Patreon? You can do like public posting, but then the things that are like more in, the works in progress or cover reveals or things like that, you have to be a paid Patreon. I'm like, that kind of makes sense, because then it's more fun. It's got one kind of central location, central hub, and I don't have to feel like I'm spread out across all the different things. So that's my
Sure.
test for this year, where it's just to see, do I like this better?
That's a clever way to use Patreon.
Yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, it's a clever way for you to say, I'm not having fun. How can I make this fun? Yeah.
Yeah.
By the way, all my social media is connected. So I post one place and it hits all of them.
Smart.
And my often it's Grace who's doing the posting. So that's another way to stay on social media. I go on briefly looking for comments that I can respond to
Yep.
instead of having to post.
Right.
Mhm.
I think that's the hardest thing, where it's like you sit down in the morning and batch a bunch of social media. At least that's what I do. And it consumes a lot more time than you think it will, especially if you're designing a piece that goes with it, like
Yeah,
an image or something along those
write a
lines.
graphic.
And it just gets to the point where it's no longer fun, because you're trying to
Right.
figure out, like, how's this image going to work on Instagram versus Twitter versus, it's like, oh, all these things.
Yeah. Then I would say get Grace's book
Yes, I'm looking
because
forward
you
to
need a
that. I am
PA.
definitely going to be
Yeah.
getting that.
Yeah. Because Grace does all of that. She does the graphics for me.
That's awesome.
Yeah. I don't know how I would do what I do if I didn't have somebody doing. And at first I resisted turning things over, and Michael would laugh. Michael Anderley would laugh, and he'd say, "Why are you still doing that?" And that became another question that I can ask myself: Why are you still doing that? So yeah, so I could not be pulling off what I'm doing if I didn't have a Grace.
I love that. Okay, I love Grace, but I'm gonna have to like segue back to Michael. So
Okay,
you have a great conversation about how you and Michael kind of, I guess, met, and
yep.
then yeah, what was that like, and how has it been working and co-writing with Michael?
So for the two people left who haven't heard this story, Meetup, Meetup, if anybody doesn't know what Meetup is, you can literally put any topic into it and find a club or a group within your town that's meeting. And it's low commitment because you can show up once and never show up again. They even have things for like going to see Christmas lights or writers groups. And I was in a writers group once, so I got the emails, and there was this guy coming to talk back in 2016 or 17, and he'd only been writing for at most 5 months and was already making six figures, and in fiction, which is supposed to be impossible as an
Right.
indie. And that's supposed to be impossible. And I thought, he's lying, but I'm going to go and maybe I'll pick up a marketing tip. And I had a teenager with me who'd already written 3 space operas, and she wanted to go. And so there's about 90 writers in the room. And halfway through, I realized Michael had accidentally noticed something the rest of us had missed, that the whale readers, which is somebody who reads at least a book a day, didn't have enough to read. Michael's a whale reader. That's how he tripped over it. And so he was trying to write something that he wanted in the style he liked, which fit them perfectly. And so, of course, they gobbled it up. And so at the very end, he said something he will probably never say again, which was, "I will stay as long as anyone has a question." And I
Yeah,
had this
especially not at a
teenager.
20 books conference. Good Lord, you'd be there for
No.
like 3 years.
Yeah. And I had this teenager with me and thought, oh, well, I can't stay because I need to get her, because I thought he'd be stormed by 90 writers.
Yeah.
And the people going by me were saying, he's lying, he's a fake, he doesn't know what he's talking about. So I turned around and looked, and there was just 2 old guys, and that was it.
Wow.
And so I went up to him. I was the only one who said, "What's your phone number?" Another thing
I
he won't
love
do
that.
anymore.
I love that.
He gave it to me. And I was the only one who followed up out of all those people. I was the only one. So then Michael claims to this day that he said, "Do you want to do a series?" I swear he said, "Do you want to start a universe?"
Mm.
And
Which
even
is
if,
probably in his mind the same thing, but
well, I'd like to point out that even if he's right, when I started the universe, he didn't stop me.
mm.
So he jumped on board, I guess, and we started Or Saren.
Nice.
And that was because I finally got into a place where I was willing to listen and willing to be part of a team and let go of outcome. All those things I finally figured out to do. And so instead of micromanaging it or saying it should look like this, or wanting to sound smart. This guy's doing what I want to do. So let's
Yeah.
just do it. Yeah. And it's been a lot of fun. I mean, in the very early days, we would finish the cover 5 minutes before we had to hit publish. And
That
there
sounds
was
pretty
one,
familiar.
yeah, we don't do that anymore. And there was one time, a brand new series, first book, Amazon put the wrong book inside the right cover on a very large pre-order.
Oh
And then, yeah, and then they also said, prove it. And
no. I bet.
but we had fans by then, so I could actually ask them. So I had proof. They fixed it. But instead of like, oh my God, what will we do? We were laughing because it was totally out of our hands.
Yeah.
We watched people 1-star us for it, and we had no control over it. But then we also watched the fans come after the people who 1-star us. We just stood on the sidelines and watched. And 2 weeks
Ate
later,
popcorn.
yeah, right. And 2 weeks later, the book took off like a rocket, and that series was very successful. And I'm not sure we even actually know why. I mean, was all the hullabaloo? But the thing is, we kept a sense of humor. We didn't sweat it. We were willing to wait and see. We did what was necessary. I went and found fans who could show Amazon screwed up, not us.
Yeah.
And so they would fix. So what we needed them to do was send a new book to everyone who'd already gotten one. And in order to do that, they wanted proof. So
Yep.
we got. And so yeah, you're gonna have to have a really big sense of humor because things will go wrong. Sometimes it was you, sometimes it was something else, and you just got to be able to laugh and say, okay, how do I fix it? And then let it go. Don't let it burn a tread mark in your brain. Just let
Yeah.
it go.
Absolutely. So do you have
I
a lot
look
of
at
fun with Michael?
Oh yeah, I look at
Yeah.
the early covers we did and think, ooh boy. And we paid more for those. We didn't really know what we were doing. Yeah, we
Okay.
paid far too much for those. Or he was sick once, and I was doing the early renditions of the troll who became famous. And it's just the worst looking thing. And even now he'll say, "What were you thinking?" And I'll say, "I have no idea." I
I
and
love it. Oh,
it's all, and then there are other things that I loved, he didn't, and people love it now. And so, he shrugs. Yeah. Then again, there's no echo chamber. There's two of us and we
yep.
check in with each other. But I'm heading out on a project on my own. So we'll see how that goes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And yep, we'll see. Grace is my person I can ask, what do you think? I have actually, and then also I have all the writers I started with who I can say, what do you think? But also at the end of the day, I'm going to trust my gut.
That's great. I think that's
Yeah.
so smart. Well, Martha, thank you so much for being here.
This has been
So
a lot of
I
fun.
love it. It's been so fun. And I wish I
Oh,
could keep you all
yeah.
day long. Trust me. I'm like, oh, I would love to pick your brain. It's amazing to listen to you talk.
Well, you can also call me outside of this.
Absolutely. We will
Yeah.
have to do that. Have some,
Yeah.
having tea. We can have tea sometime.
Right. Somebody gave me where did I stick it? For Christmas, a Justice League cup warmer.
Ooh,
You
nice.
plug into your computer.
Heck
Keep
yes.
your
Keep your mug warm and like
right.
going. I like it.
Right. And then they also came with an Aquaman pen.
Wicked. That is,
Yeah.
you get way cooler gifts than I got.
I'm a giant nerd at heart and everyone knows it.
Love it. I love it. I think I bought myself all of the books that I got this year. It's like people forget I'm a book person. It's so weird.
Right. I think that intimidates people to buy you a book.
That
But
might be.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I actually, last year, I joined a book club because I knew it would get me to read books I don't normally read, and it would give me a deadline to get the book read. And it's turned into something really useful because only one person in there likes urban fantasy. And yeah, she was a
What?
big fan though. So that was
I'm
nice.
like, there's people like that. What?
Oh, they look at me like, ugh. And yeah, they called Neil Gaiman horror. And it's like, he doesn't write horror.
What?
Yeah. So the bottom line is, though, I've ended up reading a lot of books I would have not known about or chosen. The best one was Lessons in Chemistry.
Ooh,
And oh, it's so good. And I love the fact that this woman, she's 65 and this is her first book, and it's really, really good.
I love
So
it.
Lessons in Chemistry is my
I will
one.
check it out. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah, so that's also helpful to join a book club and just be a member.
Yeah.
And yeah, you'll read stuff. I'm reading Black Cake right now.
Interesting. Okay. I'm reading The Things We Never Got Over by Lucy Score. That's the one I'm reading at the
Okay.
moment. Yeah.
Okay. I think I've read some of Lucy Score as well in the book club.
Oh, nice. Yeah, this is the
Yeah.
first one that I've read of hers. My PA, I'm actually transitioning a little bit over into a contemporary romance pen name that I'm going to test out this
Mhm.
year. And so I've been reading a lot of Colleen Hoover because, obviously she's the queen of this genre. And Lucy is the first time, this is the first time I've read hers, and I've read a bunch of others in similar vein. And so it's been fun to switch it up a little bit because for me, I'm
Yeah.
I'm that big fantasy geek. So I read a lot of urban
Right.
fantasy and paranormal fantasy and
Right.
just paranormal. And so it's nice. It's been actually kind of a breath of fresh air, almost like a palate
Right.
cleanser to read
Yeah,
different.
exactly.
Yeah.
I think it's part of the reason why Queen of the Flightless Dragons has been more fun to write because
Cool.
I'm being influenced by the sentence structure of the books I've been reading
Yeah.
and a different way of looking at things. And yeah, it's been a palate cleanser. And yeah, it's made this more fun.
Isn't that neat when that happens when you test
Yeah.
something else or you read something else and how it does influence us? I know a lot of authors,
Yeah.
especially in the beginning, are so scared to read anything because it might influence them. And it's actually that's good. That's a good thing.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm a product of all the books I've read.
Same.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah. Well,
Well,
this has been so much fun.
yes, thank you for being here. And if my audience wants to find you and track you down, get your books and all the good fun stuff, where do they go to find you?
So right now, all the books are on Amazon.com under Martha Carr. You can sign up for the newsletter at marthacarr.com, and which makes it super easy. And that way, you'll also hear about the Kickstarter. On Facebook, there's an author group, Martha Carr. I just kept it really simple. If you can remember Martha Carr, you kind of got it.
Yep.
And that is where the fans can come and chat with each other. And also, um, every first Friday of the month. I started it during quarantine, thinking I would do it for a few weeks, and 2 years later, uh, we're still
Uh-oh.
doing it. You can sign up during the month to win a pizza. And then on the first Friday of the month, we all get 5 fans win every month. And then on the first Friday, we gather together on Zoom, and they're like family. They're the craziest bunch of it's herding cats. It's so much fun.
I love
And
that.
it's so much fun. And they look forward to seeing each other. They get very put out if the Zoom isn't working because we've been doing this for 2 years.
Yeah.
They come from all over the world to join in, and occasionally other authors will show up. People who write North Sarin are regularly there, and
Wow. What a
so
fun thing to do.
1 p.m. Central Time,
Okay.
first Friday of every month. If you're in my Facebook group, or you follow my author page, you'll see the sign up for a free pizza. You don't have to come. Often people win and don't come on Friday. That's cool. The only reason why you can only win a pizza US domestic is because I don't know how to deliver a pizza in Holland.
Sure.
Um, but which Bep, who comes to every meeting, who lives in Holland, I think, or Denmark. And if Bep sees this, she will correct me. Um, but she will. She's always pointing out that she should get a pizza. By the way, too, so I had a reoccurrence of the cancer last year,
Oh,
and the fans found out that I was doing chemo because now chemo exists for melanoma. And so it was still during quarantine, which was a very weird time because you can't take anyone with you. I had to go into the building alone,
okay.
and it takes all day. And
Oh,
so suddenly I started getting those direct messages, and they were super long, and they read more like a story, and they were from fans. And I started thinking, what the hell is going on? Somehow Beth found out what day, and
oh,
word got around. And so they were trying to entertain me from afar.
oh,
And
that's so
yeah,
sweet.
fans, Beth sent flowers from whatever foreign country she's in. And yeah, fans sent all sorts of things to try and be there. And I mean, how amazing is that?
That is amazing.
It is amazing.
How awesome is that? And it
Right.
just to know that what you do and who you are and the way that you be impacts people so deeply that they're willing to do that. That's
Well,
amazing.
yeah, and that we're more like family and friends. Yeah. So yeah. And yeah, Scott Walker, another author, shows up all the time for Pizza Friday.
Love it.
So yeah, Tierra Cameron comes all the time. He's my favorite. He writes in Orsarin, and he had been coming for at least a year. And I kept saying, "So what next book do you have coming out?" It wasn't until a couple of months ago that they all said, "He's real. We thought that was your pen names." And
Ah,
he was laughing. Fortunately, he was laughing quite a bit because I mean, he's been sitting there the whole time, and they thought it was me. So why did they think I was asking him what book do you have coming out? Yeah.
that's
So we've
funny.
just referred to him as an AI ever since.
Nice. He's a
Yeah,
non-player character,
that's
NPC.
right. That's right. That's how much I go out for fans. I will make someone show up as a pen name.
Oh, that is awesome. Now you know what they're doing when they're reading your books and they're really like trying to figure out what's actually happening and they're giving
That's right.
like they
That's
must be
right.
taking all sorts of leaps going on.
Right. And you know, you're welcome to show up for Pizza Friday too, by
I
the way.
would love
And you
that.
can enter and win a pizza.
Ooh, I would love that.
Yeah, yeah, or bring your lunch.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. And whenever I travel, then too, I also will hold a lunch and advertise where the restaurant is and when I'll be there, and people can tell me, and I'll buy lunch.
Oh, how
Yes,
cool.
yeah, and sometimes it's 3 people, sometimes it's 10 people. It's yeah, it's fun.
How cool is that?
Pizza
I would love to
Friday
do
on
the
the
same
road.
thing, but I'm up in the middle of central Minnesota and like my own son gets stuck in the road trying to get home.
Right. Well, I mean, I do it in Austin, which is easy to do. There's a picture of somebody in a Peapod costume holding up one of my books in a mean-eyed cat in Austin.
Nice.
But I mean, if I'm traveling to New York, I'll do it. If I'm traveling to Chicago, I'll do it. And yeah, and it's Pizza Friday on the road, basically.
I love it. I love it. Well, if you ever are in Minnesota doing it, make sure you let me know because I will be there.
I and then, you know, that could happen because I travel through Minnesota to get to the Wild Rice Retreat, which is in Wisconsin, but
Yeah.
you have to land in Minnesota to drive there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, nice shout out for Wild Rice Retreat, which is a wonderful
Nice.
place.
Ooh, I
Mhm.
will have to check that out now too.
Yeah,
It's so beautiful over in Wisconsin, especially if you're in like I don't know where that is, but
it's right on Lake Superior.
okay, nice.
Right. And there's little islands in the lake, and Brad Pitt owns one of the homes, if that influences
Ooh,
anyone.
nice, nice. Okay, I see where you're going with this. Maybe you'll get a glimpse. You never know what will
You
happen,
never know.
right? I live up in an area of Cross Lake, Minnesota, and Tom Cruise and Nicole Kidman, when they were a thing, actually owned one of the houses over here.
Yeah.
So,
This was a Brad Pitt, Jennifer Aniston house that he
okay,
kept. So yeah, same deal. Yeah. So clearly you and I could talk until tomorrow.
we
So
could.
yeah.
We could, but that's all right. We will have to get together again just for tea
Yes, we
or
will.
coffee or whichever.
Yeah. Or Pizza Friday.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's coming. Is that tomorrow?
It is tomorrow.
It is
Yeah.
tomorrow. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I might have to join. I will see what I can do.
1 p.m. Central Time. Yeah.
Good. Awesome. Well, Martha, thank you so much for being here, truly. And like I said, your talk was one of the ones that just stuck with me the entire day. And wasn't it earlier in the day too? I was just thinking
Yeah.
about it the entire time.
Late
So
morning.
yeah.
Because I specifically asked Craig not to put me at 8 o'clock. So I know it
Okay.
wasn't the
Smart.
first. Yes.
But I remember just sitting there thinking about it all day. It was and then I think when I was in the 20 books group, the attendee group, I was like, dark curse you, Martha. I think I even said something like that in there, like making me cry this dang thing.
That's my goal. See how many
Yes,
people I can get to cry.
clearly.
Yes. Yes.
It's all good. Well, thank you. I appreciate you being here, and I can't wait to
Thank
have you
you.
on again if you'd ever like to do
Yeah,
it. So
absolutely. Maybe we can come back and talk about how the Kickstarter went.
I would love that. Yes,
Yeah.
it's a plan.
Yeah. All right. All
Well,
right.
thank
Well, have a good day. Yeah. And
you
Happy New
too.
Year.
Happy New Year to you as well.